In the vast and endless steppes, where the winds carry the whispers of the ancestors, I can almost hear the question that echoes through my mind. What happens when we die? Let us turn to the ancient Mongols, a proud race that held a worldview profoundly shaped by their connection to nature, the land, and the spirits that inhabit all things. The question of what happens when we die is a question that stretches beyond the physical realm, touching the edges of the divine, the mystical, and the cyclical rhythms of the cosmos. As an ancient Mongolian philosopher, I invite you to walk with me as we explore this deeply sacred and thought-provoking question. What becomes of the spirit once it departs the body? Is there a finality, or does the journey continue in another form? In the heart of Mongolian spirituality, death is not an end, but rather a transition. This view stems from the belief in the eternal cycle of life, death, and rebirth, a cycle governed by the laws of nature and the will of the spirits. Mongols, living in harmony with the natural world, saw death as a return to the earth, an integration into the great circle of life that sustains all beings. Do we not see this cycle in the changing seasons, where winter gives way to spring and life continually blossoms anew? The ancient Mongols believed that human life, like the seasons, was temporary, but part of a greater, unbroken rhythm. When we die, our soul departs the body, but it does not cease to exist. It is believed that our spirit, our Khoroo, moves into the realm of the unseen, where it will join the ancestors in the spirit world, watching over the living. But where, then, is this spirit world? Is it a far-off place beyond the stars, or is it more intimately tied to our earthly realm? In the Mongolian worldview, the spirits of the deceased do not vanish. They remain present, influencing the world of the living in both benevolent and malevolent ways. The Mongols believed that the world is populated by a myriad of spirits, some of the land, the sky, the animals, and the ancestors. The most revered of these spirits were the Tengri, the great sky god, and the 5 white gods, spirits that presided over the elements, the earth, and the sacred balance of all things. Tengri, the great and omnipotent sky deity, is the most powerful of the divinities in Mongolian belief. The Mongols believed that Tengri created the universe and continues to guide the fates of men and women. When a person dies, their soul is thought to journey towards Tengri, seeking his judgment and protection. To die in a peaceful and righteous manner was to be granted favor in the afterlife, and it was believed that those souls would ascend to the heavenly realms where they would remain as guardian spirits to their descendants. However, death caused by violence or ill deeds might lead to a much darker fate, where the spirit would wander aimlessly or be condemned to a lower realm. But what if a person's soul does not ascend, but instead lingers on the earth? How might the restless dead influence the living? Among the most profound beliefs of the ancient Mongols was the reverence for ancestors. The spirits of the dead did not simply fade into oblivion. Instead, the ancestors became guardians of the family, community, and the land. The Mongols maintained strong familial ties to the deceased, honoring them with rituals, sacrifices, and prayers. It was believed that these spirits could intervene in the lives of the living, offering guidance, protection, or punishment. The act of venerating the dead was not just a matter of respect, but a way to maintain balance between the living and the spirit world. Sacrifices of livestock, horses, sheep, or goats, were common during important ceremonies to honor the spirits. The Mongols believed that the spirits of the deceased could bestow blessings upon the living, particularly in times of hardship or when seeking guidance on important matters. Consider this, dear listener. When a loved one passes, are they truly gone? Or do they continue to shape the lives of those they leave behind? Could the bond of kinship transcend the limits of the body? Shamanism, the spiritual practice of communicating with the spirit world, was central to the Mongolian understanding of death. The shamans were revered as spiritual mediators, able to communicate with the spirits of the dead and navigate the realm beyond. It was through the shaman that the living could learn of the fate of the deceased, seek wisdom from the ancestors, and even ask for divine intervention in matters of health, fortune, and protection. In the Mongolian belief system, it was often said that the soul of the deceased must pass through several trials after death. One of the most significant of these was the crossing of the river of death, a metaphorical barrier that separated the earthly realm from the spiritual. It was the shaman's role to help guide the soul of the deceased across this river, ensuring that it reached its proper destination. The soul might travel to the realm of Tengri, or it might be reincarnated in another form, depending on the circumstances of the death and the spiritual state of the deceased. But why do we feel the need for intermediaries, like shamans, to bridge the gap between the living and the dead? Why do humans seek such communion with the spirit world? Mongols also believed in the concept of the Khoroo, a kind of spiritual gathering place where souls of the deceased would gather. It was believed that the souls of those who lived virtuous lives would join together in the Khoroo, a place of peace and joy, where they could continue to watch over and protect their families. The souls of the deceased were believed to come together in these sacred gatherings, much like the nomadic herders who would gather around the fire in the evening. This sense of a shared spiritual space, of community that transcends the boundaries of life and death, is a central part of Mongolian thought. The afterlife is not an isolated experience, but a continuation of the relationships formed in life. In this view, the souls of the dead live on through the collective memory of their descendants, and it is through their descendants that their influence remains. Mongolian beliefs also included the notion of reincarnation, though this was not always universally agreed upon. Some believed that the soul would be reborn into a new body after death, either as a human or in some cases as an animal. Reincarnation was seen as another manifestation of the endless cycle of life and death. A person's actions during their lifetime, particularly their adherence to moral and spiritual principles, determined the quality and nature of their next life. It is said that great shamans or spiritual leaders might retain memories of their past lives, and these memories could help guide them in their current lives. Could it be that the actions of our past lives shape who we are today? Do we not carry with us the echoes of those who came before us, whether consciously or not? Thus we see that in the ancient Mongolian view, death is but a passing from one state of being to another, from the material world into the spiritual realm. It is not a termination, but a transition, a journey that continues beyond the confines of our bodies. The spirits of the deceased continue to play an active role in the world of the living, guiding, protecting, and sometimes influencing the course of events. In the end, what happens when we die may not be as important as how we live. For the Mongols, life and death are part of a continuous cycle. Each moment in our lives is connected to the eternity that lies beyond. Just as the great Tengri watches over us, so too do our ancestors, whose spirits shape the world in unseen ways. Perhaps the ultimate question is not what happens after death, but whether we live in a manner that will honor the spirits who have gone before us and the spirits who will follow after. What is the legacy we will leave behind? And how will the spirits of our ancestors view us when our time comes to cross the river of death?